Okay, so this is actually the last lab of our little class for Intro to Data Analytics and lab 6. So you should have watched the lecture videos before doing the lab. The code is on Canvas. And this particular lab is primarily about visualization. And yes, there is an entire course, data visualization. That course uses Tableau. That's a really fun course. It's offered twice a year generally, maybe offered even more in the future. But we're going to actually talk about visuals in R. And part of me is like, um, do we really have to be doing coding for visuals? And the answer to that to some extent is yes, because even with all of the other tools, in order to do really customized graphics, there's still a role for coding things in R or Python and to be able to actually write custom code for graphs. Yes, the sort of point and click software like Tableau can do a lot, but particularly if you're in some type of academic situation where you're doing research and you need um, some type of plot, it may be your only option to do a coded plot. So it is still good to know, and a lot of what R is used for, I mean, a lot of what R made famous is the ggplot package that we're going to look at very briefly, because it could create highly customizable graphics. It's not so simple to use, but it's also not ridiculously overly complicated that academic researchers could pick up on it and do stuff, because you wouldn't believe how many like specific sort of graphs you might need to do, particularly like if you're in the research world and you want to display things in a certain way. So it is worth learning more about graphs. So the first graph we're going to look at is just simply histograms, which show frequency distributions. These everybody should know about from Stats 1. Frequency distributions and histograms still are like the most classic and most important thing to be able to do in your basic data summaries. So let's look really briefly at how to run a histogram in R. Okay. So I'm in R, and this is the Lab 6 code. And I'm going to pull up the bears data, which we've pulled up before. Again, this is on my C drive. We've went over file paths before. So I'm just uploading the bear file. It's an SPSS file, so I have to use this package to get it in. I had a little phase when I used the bears data for a lot of stuff. And so I've uploaded my bears data. You always do want to just hover over, just make sure it's loaded before you start doing things with it. Bears, okay. And so now I'm going to run a histogram just on the bear neck size. And so I do that. Okay. This is just really, really bland. I mean, the frequencies are just counts, no real title, just gray. I could jazz it up a little and do some colors and some labels just to make it a little bit better. Same graph, just jazzed up a little. Okay. So that's your basic histogram. Okay. Next, we have the scatter plot, which is, of course, your way of showing bivariate relations, particularly quantitative relations. Let's go in R and look at this. So my next one is looking at length and width of heads in bears. Just simple scatter plot code. This is just base R. Just change the dot colors to red. Played around with the parameters a little bit, not too much. Simple scatter plot, very, very powerful. It teaches you how to look at the distribution of a bivariate data set and the relation between the two variables, which this one is sort of weakly positively correlated, bigger head length, bigger head width. Some basics here. Okay. I don't know, that one won't let me write on it, so I'm actually going to restart because I want to be able to, yeah, there we go. Anyways, next is a pie chart. Now, the thing about these is this is kind of similar to what you have to do in Excel. You never want to run these on raw data. Don't run on data or raw data. You want to run these on summarized data, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm back in R, and my scatter plot code is going to be on, I mean, not my scatter plot, sorry, my pie chart is going to be on the gender of bears, but, and then table is a summary function. So I'm going to look at table. It tells me that there's one bear that's I mean, no, sorry, there's 19 bears that are gender 0 and one bear that's gender 1. I'm not sure whether one is male or female in this data set, but it doesn't really matter. It would if I were a researcher, but I'm just trying to illustrate a pie chart. If I did this, if I just ran pi function pi on column bear sex, I would get this. Yikes. That's because R does not like summarize the data for you. So what I have to do is run the pie chart on the table and the tabulated data. And when I do that, I get like a super nice little like nice plot that is a nice little pie chart of my bear gender. Okay. Next, I'm talking about lattice plots, and you're like, what are those? SP R actually has a long story. There used to be this language called S plus, and yes, I'm old enough to have actually like used this stuff. But somehow S plus was a commercial language, and somehow it sort of got stolen into the open source world and became part of R. But a lattice plot allows you to essentially take data and plot it like by categories. So you can look at like patterns and then you can like split them up into like genders or like races and look at like a lattice plot. So it's latticed out. 20 some odd years ago, and you're like, that's a long time. Yes, it was. One of the reasons R took off is because it could do these types of plots because these were not available in like other kinds of software. In fact, they're really not. I mean, Tableau does them a little, but still, there's a customized feature to R and the ability to do plots like this. That's still valuable to know how to code and write plots. Okay, so a lattice is like doing things out by like groups. And you can do these like with all kinds of charts. You can do like a ladder plot of like pie charts and well, you wouldn't necessarily do pie charts, but like bar charts by group and then scatter plots by like group and stuff. And they give you like a much better way to like look at your data in more detail, like broken down. So they're actually really useful. Okay. So the next thing, I think Lattice is actually in base, but you still want to like pull it in with a library. There's some packages like that, and like they don't automatically load with base. You have to actually load them, maybe because they're too big or something like that. I'm gonna use the MT car data, and I'm gonna do a miles per gallon by horsepower, and I'm gonna also split it into a lattice by cylinders. So cars have like different cylinders. I don't really know anything about cars. I just know that like it's a way to group the data. And so here's a ladder plot of like, I mean a lattice plot rather of MPG and horsepower, and then this is by like 4 cylinders, 6 cylinders, 8 cylinders, which has something to do with the engine. I don't the like X and Y axes are the same, and like this is a lattice. I don't know why for like the middle one that's up. I guess to be like non-distracting, but you can see like the miles per gallon by horsepower is like divvied up into like specifically looking at the 4 cylinder, the 6 cylinder, and the 8 cylinder. And to be able to do that was really powerful, which is part of the reason this kind of took off. Um, then all I do here is a little bit more labeling, or actually, I don't quite know. I actually cannot explain why that puts the lines in, but it puts in sort of a simple regression line on the scatter plots. Okay, so that's just something to introduce. You can play with lattice plot and like do like bar plots and things like that. I'm not really a graphics person, so I don't necessarily remember how to do all this stuff myself, but I do want to point out that this package is easily available and easily usable. R has like different graphics packages. They're all not like the same. Okay. The next one we're talking about is ggplot. Now there's like ggplot 2 and 3, and there's like more advanced versions of this. Yes, I know. This is another classic package, and this is where the sort of high level customizability comes into play. And this is one of the reasons that R took off. I think if it weren't for like this customized graphics, R would never have taken off like it did. But I do want to show you some of this. These are actually there's a video for you to watch on these as well. There's a whole world of ggplot people. You could almost make a career of just doing ggplots. So I'm going to install ggplot and then load it. I'm also going to install and load dplyr, which is another package because I think that somehow it needs it. So we're going to use it. And again, I almost always get fake errors with this. I'm going to pull the Titanic data despite the fact that I always tell my students they can't use the Titanic data because yes, it's like all over the web. There's internet. I mean, it's like everywhere, but you can't use it for a project, but for simple teaching examples, it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to pull in the Titanic data with the CSV file on my C drive. Okay. Basic Titanic data. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bar plot. There. Oh, I could not find function ggplot. That's interesting. I think it's ggplot2 now. So I have to fix this code. Oh, maybe I actually have to like do this again. There it goes. I don't really know what was wrong with it, but we're good. Okay, so actually the code's right. This is like a really boring graph. It's just a count of survivors versus non-survivors on the Titanic. But ggplot is like kind of like to me it's kind of hard. Like it's beyond like what I would really want to do, but I don't do a lot of customized graphs because you kind of like have to like create the canvas and then like add things to it. So like the geom bar like adds this this creates the plot and then you create that and then you see like ggplot like this creates the plot and then it adds the bars and the labels and stuff. So it's kind of like a layered building process that you have to program in, but that also creates the customizability. um Next I'm going to do another plot, but this one's going to be a little bit prettier. It's the same plot, but now it has like a label and that, so it just looks a lot better than this. Yeah. Okay. So the other thing you can do is you can drill down a little bit and just do like something like this. Okay. This is kind of like a lattice plot, but this is actually within ggplot. Lattice plot is actually like a separate, lattice plot is like a much easier package to use than ggplot. Ggplot is much more customizable and complex, whereas lattice plot is just kind of like these kind of like relatively simple, like just expanding on regular uh, scatter plots and bar charts to just divvy them up by category. And the categories are like MPG by that, and this is like the category right there. Okay, so this is a ggplot one split up kind of nicely into like um, gender and then passenger count and then survival rate like all together. Um, yeah, I don't even like I'm not 100% sure what this is plotting, but it divvies up the data into like category one, two, three. I think this is patient class and then gender. Um, yeah. So, but ggplot is super customizable and you can do all kinds of things with it. That's just one silly little easy example. So play with that a little bit. Um, just a little bit, but don't go too wild. Okay. The very last thing I look at is geospatial plots. Now these just always wow me. These are maps. So I don't know like at all like how these got to be like so good, but it still like just amazes me that software like R you can just pull up a package and you can get these beautiful detailed plots of like everything on Earth. It's amazing. So we're gonna look at package leaflet, which I found just sort of randomly finding a package to do this. Um, and this is their example code because I'm really not smart enough to be able to do this myself. So I'm gonna load this leaflet package, and you'll be amazed what this does. Okay. So leaflet, now this is the pipe operator code, and so I actually rewrote the code without the pipe operator. I don't like pipe operators. I guess I'm the only one. I don't know. What pipe operators do is they rewrite code using these new like ways of assignment operators, but they're like concatenated sort of. So I just wrote the code with no pipe operator. Okay. And I'm gonna run this. And this is amazing. This is like, I don't know what this is. This is the birthplace of R. I think it's in some other country somewhere. And then also to do this again, now all we have to do to use this package is type in the latitude and longitude, so it's really easy, and then rename things. And so just to be really cool, this is the school. All I had to do is look up the latitude and longitude, and then you get this like super detailed map. I don't know how it does this. It's totally amazing. Right. So this is just a lab to just sort of explore what R can do in terms of visualizations. Again, I mean, it's kind of easier depending on your perspective. I mean, code is always reusable too, whereas, if you're in Tableau, unless you code in Tableau, you have to point and click every time you run stuff. But if you write the R code, then you have it to edit and modify like forever, basically. Um, Okay. So there's a lab to just give you a feel for playing around with these graphs a little, and then awesome. This is the last little R lab. I hope these labs have been helpful. We basically kind of explored like what R can do with some kind of like really simple examples, just illustrating the basic topics within data analytics. Just basically setting it up for the first lab. The second lab, we worked with basic stats. The third lab, we did some SQL and stuff. Um, the fourth lab, no, the fourth lab we did some SQL and stuff. The third lab we did some stats. The second lab we built data frames and stuff. The fifth lab we looked at some machine language and data mining kind of stuff, machine learning rather. And then this lab we looked at visualization. So that's a nice little tour of what R can do and some foundations for you. Okay, thanks.